One could say the fearful thinking vibrates at the same frequency as the fearful emotion, so it is
Almost every single day, we as human beings, we are struggling with fear or anxiety in our minds and body. And in this video, Eckhart Tolle explains how we can go about replacing fearfulness and anxious thinking with a fuel that we can use to drive into conscious manifestations in our life. Guys, this is amazing stuff. This is mind-blowing. Let's jump into the video and hear what Eckhart has to say.
now what about the fear? What about the anxiety? The anxiety that has been in you. For many people, it's in the background most of their lives, some fear, some anxiety. And when they're being challenged, as now, the anxiety that is a kind of background, distant background noise for some people, is almost always there, or sometimes obscured, but then it's there again, that suddenly becomes very pronounced. This anxiety in the face of a challenge, the anxiety that had already been there in the background, the fear, that now comes out fully, and you are in the grip of it. And now you become aware of the link between your thought processes and your emotions. And you realize that your unconscious thought process, such as worry, actually fuel the emotion that we call fear or anxiety continuously. So a vicious circle arises, and then the emotion that you feel, which you tend to feel it in your stomach, in this area here, you feel it, a contraction, almost a painful thing dwelling in your stomach or solar plexus area. But it can affect the whole body. The whole body can be tense. It interferes with the harmonious functioning of your body. So this anxiety lowers your immune system on the physical level. Even mainstream medicine recognizes the fact that what they call stress, stress is mostly fear and anxiety, makes you much more. The fearful thinking feeds the fearful emotion with energy. One could say the fearful thinking vibrates at the same frequency as the fearful emotion, so it is food that the emotion loves. So it wants more of it. Once you're under the grip of worrying, anxious thinking, you don't want to stop. Well, you might want to stop, but you're not even there when you're completely identified. It does not want to stop. So you are trapped in this fearful, vicious circle of emotion, fearful thinking, creating the emotion of fear, and the emotion of fear rising back up into your mind and creating emotionally charged fearful thinking. And when you are in that state, you cannot think clearly. Whatever thought that arises, what do I have to do now? What can I do now? It's very unlikely that you will have a creative and a useful thought. Whatever your action you take on the basis of fearful thinking, it is likely to be not wise, not effective, and probably wrong, and leads to more suffering. In whatever way you interpret the world through the veil of fearful thinking, in whatever way you interpret the world when you're in the grip of fearful thinking, is going to be a complete misinterpretation. But to you, when you identify with it, it's the reality. So the first thing is to become aware of thoughts and emotions. Realize what kind of thoughts go through your mind. Recognize the futility and destructive nature of these types of thought, and then replace these thoughts not immediately with positive thoughts, but with awareness. Instead of engaged in negative thinking, be more present as much as you can. Be more in the present moment. because after all, that's all there ever is. The mind doesn't seem to know that. All there ever is the present moment. There's nothing else ever in your life, so you might as well give it some attention. You might as well make it the focus of your life, because it unfolds in this now moment. Everything. Future never comes. It's always now. When the future comes, it's the now. When the past happened, it was the now. When you remember the past, you remember it now. When you think about future, you think about it now. There is only now, so you might as well give it your fullest attention, make it the focal point of your life, and then see what you can do with the so-called future. But first you need to come into a relationship with the now that is helpful, sane, and that is friendly. Become friendly with them. When you enter the now, you see the now is not really that, is not a threatening place most of the time, except when there's an emergency happening, then you have to do something, an immediate life-threatening or whatever it is. But the now is actually a much more benign place than the mind would be able to recognize. But you need to have your awareness there. You need to be aware. You need to be present in the now in order to recognize that the now can actually be your friend and is not your enemy. The now is your friend. You become friendly with the present moment. So you begin to cut the link between your thought processes and the emotion, because you let go of these fearful thoughts. You recognize their futility. Instead, you're much more present. Thoughts will occasionally still come in, and then you recognize them, let go, be more present. However, in that presence, the emotion of fear may not and probably will not immediately disappear, because it's been there for a long time. So even if you no longer fuel the emotion with your thinking, you become present, and you may notice, yes, more aware of sense perceptions, the aliveness of this moment. You can see perhaps beauty in things we didn't give any attention to before. However, you can also still feel there's anxiety or fear living in you, still there. Even when you're no longer feeding it with your thoughts, you can still feel it. There it is. And that becomes part of your experience of the present moment, that anxiety. Now, what do you do with it? The normal tendency would be to say, I want to get rid of this. I shouldn't be feeling this. I don't want to feel this. Make the emotion that you feel that still lives in you part of your experience of the present moment, and accept it in the way you accept the totality of the present moment. And that's a new way of living, a very powerful way of living, a very powerful way of connecting with a deeper level of consciousness in you, of finding enormous power that dwells in you if you can accept the present moment as it is, externally and internally. So it's not going to kill you. The anxiety is there, but it's not going to kill you. It might kill you if you react to it and create further anxiety. Habitual unhappiness that arises in you, no matter where you go and what you do, unhappiness arises in you. No matter where you go and what you do, fear and anxiety are there. So you've reached that step where you're no longer giving it further fuel or food, and you're becoming aware of the anxiety, and then you become what there is and as you place your attention on it, which is part of the attention that's in the present moment, you become aware that it's actually, there's very intense energy in that fear, almost a burning energy in that fear. But the energy is not a flowing energy, it's trapped energy. It's like being like a boiling kettle, you're holding the lid down. The energy is trapped, but there is enormous life energy in that fear. And if you can completely accept your fear at this moment without feeding it any longer with your thinking, just being aware of it. That's what it is. You may find in a very subtle way a change happening, and the change is it's a transmutation of this energy of fear. When you accept it completely, a transmutation of this energy into intense presence. So the same energy that before was fear, when it's completely accepted, it suddenly goes. And there's enormous power that was in there trapped. And suddenly it becomes fuel for your consciousness, becomes transmuted into presence or awareness when it's completely accepted. And then it's no longer fear, it's just suddenly intense awareness. And that intense awareness is like one could almost say a higher intelligence that suddenly begins to operate in you. You're no longer just reliant on the conditioning of your mind. There's an intense presence there, and it doesn't mean it happens once and then it's never fear again. After that experience, you have to experiment. It may not last very long, the initial transmutation. Then you may fall back into fear, and the fear may repeatedly try to rise back up into your mind and make you think fearful thoughts. And from time to time, it probably will succeed again, and you fall back into the same pattern. But then more and more, at shorter and shorter intervals, you wake up again and you realize that this is what's happening. And then again, you come to a place of just acceptance, and then notice that the transmutation happens again.
I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you do, let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to give this video a like. Give it a thumbs up so that we can know and create more videos like this one.